Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. We're back on Broadway here at the Majestic Theatre talking to, well, a theatre legend really, a man who has been doing it for as long as he's been alive, singing and performing, and he's now Phantom of the Opera in the 30th year. It's on its way. James Barbour, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for being here.
I came to see you on Thursday, and it was somewhat exhausting, to be honest, at that matinee, because it was filled with kids who were having so much fun. I felt very old and like I was behind the game. They loved it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, the demographic for the audiences of this show is so wide, and you never know what to expect. I mean, we have a huge Asian audience, we have a huge South American audience, we have a huge American audience, and we have all of these schools that come who are seeing it for the first time, and perhaps it's their first Broadway show. So it's very exciting.
This show still stands up. I mean, I was thinking about when it was created, and I wish I could have been at that opening night. I was barely even born, which is embarrassing. But you sit there and you think that some of the technology that they're still using today is remarkable, and it stands up, doesn't it, compared to other shows on the Strip?
It really does. You know, when people come and I'll give them tours afterwards and we'll walk around, one of the unique things about the show is that they literally had to dynamite out the basement because they were trying to, if I know this correctly, replicate sort of what was happening in London. And the theater in London was basically all hand cranked and things like that. Well, they're not going to do all of that here. There is automation. But it is unique in its ability to stand the test of time, and people are still awed by what they see. Even though you have LED and CGI and all these things that can be brought to bear, this is a show that is just that majestic, no pun intended.
I love as well how it starts big and it ends big, and in between there are those very emotional bits. I mean, this is not silly theatre, this is meaningful and serves a purpose, especially when you look at my face. I mean, we've got a lot in common with the Phantom. You play it slightly differently to how I've seen it before, and you've got an incredible resonance to your voice, and that deepness, I think, makes him even more creepy, because we need to remember this is not a nice man, although we've got to kind of sympathise with him.
Yeah, well, I'm a baritone, and, I'm a lyric baritone. I can hit the tenor notes, but it's written for a tenor. And my predecessor, Norm Lewis, who was the first African-American to do the role, also a baritone. So coming into that role, and I joke, all the characters I've ever played, I call them DBG, dark brooding guys. I was going to call my company DBG Inc. But I'm like a dork. I'm like a funny, I love comedy, right? I love to do that. But what I brought to it was I look at this character, and I was talking to Hal Prince about it, the director. He's a broken child, basically, who, at a very early age was cast out because of his disfigurement, had nothing to do with who he was inside. But because of that, and because of the obstacles he had to face, created this barrier and this facade, which literally became the mask. And so as he grew, I look at him in the tuxedo and that wig that he wears as the vision of who he sees the ultimate man to be. And, it is a total facade, because when you pull it off, you see his face for what it is, but more so, figuratively pulling the mask off, you see that broken child inside. So, I can't help but have the resonance in my voice because it's who I am. But I also think that I try to bring that little more darkness to the character.
Then we look at the sort of close of the first act, which is the chandelier, which has become iconic. I mean, those moments are so spectacular. And to see the reaction again on Thursday, I must have seen the show 100 times. I'm almost mouthing the words with you. But it's still incredible, isn't it, what they do with the show? And then you add in the tunes, which, of course, is Lloyd Webber's genius. And they're timeless, too. None of it feels old, even though this is 3 decades old.
Yeah, truly. And I am shocked. I shouldn't say shocked. I'm always joyfully amazed when that chandelier comes down, because we've seen it, we know it, but there are people that have never seen it, and they don't know what's going to happen. And it's like in the original Cats, when that that tire would go up in the air, you don't know what's going to happen. And so when you hear that and you feel that, and you hear the the reactions when Raoul kisses Christine and the kids go whoa, It's exciting because they're seeing it for the first time. It's a huge spectacle.
I'm so glad I went to that matinee, because to see it through a kid's eyes, I mean, the fear, because this is a dark story, but then the joy of the opulence of the show, because it swings from the sort of dark underground stuff to then these big, huge costume set pieces, and then back into the love story.
You know what else is unique? And I didn't realize this until I was actually doing it. The set is actually very minimalistic. So when you look at the lair, the Phantom's lair, all it is the organ, this little organ, a mirror, and some candelabras. That's all it is. When you look at the manager scene, it's basically a desk and a doorway. When you look at Masquerade, obviously it's a giant staircase, but there's nothing else. And one of the cool things about it is I think that leaves more to the imagination. You can create these worlds of what you think it's going to be. When you're in the lair, are there rats scurrying through the water? Do you hear the water dripping? Those kinds of things are what I like to create, and I hope the audience can see as well.
And you seem to be one of the least creepy men in real life who've played this role. I've interviewed a lot of phantoms over the years. Some are quite normal. I've also interviewed phantoms who don't open curtains and things because they try and stay in character. Did you ever go that far with it to get this down and own it?
Not this role. There's this great story. What is it? Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier, when they were doing The Marathon Man, and Dustin Hoffman had to, stay up many, many nights. His character was exhausted, and he did. And he went up the next morning, and they were about to shoot the scene, and Olivier looked at him and he goes, "Dustin, why don't you try acting? It's much easier." Right? So, I don't know if that's true, but I've heard the story. I create backstory, and I create the character based on what the script is, and sometimes I don't even look at what the original source material is because this is taken from that. And Andrew has written a show based on that material and Hal has interpreted it, and Gillian Lynn interpreted that. So you have to take it for what it is. But, I'm also a dad, so I've got, we did a put-in and my 8-year-old came to the put-in because, it is scary. There's fire and things like that. And we did everything, but I didn't put the makeup on, but I had the mask. And at the end, I was like, "So what'd you think?" She goes, "It would have been better with the makeup." She puts you in your place. But it's a lot of fun. I've studied. I came from an acting background before I started singing, and so my whole background is about researching the character and finding what it is. But at the end of the day, you're playing a character that doesn't exist in real life right now.
And in real life, it's interesting how you've become a brand, as so many have in the West End and Broadway. And this is a new phenomenon, really. We didn't have many people we knew from the West End. Often you'd go to these shows and there was no internet, so you left not knowing who they were, really. Now, of course, you have the opportunity to build your sort of backstory and we can read all about you. And is your stuff outside as important as doing the show? Because it seems to me now on Broadway, you're all stars in your own right.
Correct. And the thing for me is that I had a college mentor that said to us, "What audacity do you have to stand on a stage and ask people to pay money to see you do this?" And we were hit. Wow. And I was like, wow, what is our responsibility? And I took that as a challenge to hopefully be a positive effect for change, or have someone leave the theater and maybe think of life in a different way or be happier. So my work in the theater and in the entertainment world is really, I love doing it, but it's a way to reach people to try to go, hey, you know what? If you're having a bad day, there's something you can do. There's hope, there's life, there's this. And to inspire people to reach their goals and their dreams, and the podcast was called the Star Power Hour, and it's finding the star power within yourself, no matter if you're in the entertainment industry or not. It's tapping into that energy within yourself to achieve what you want to achieve.
And isn't it funny how as human beings we love to laugh as much as we love to cry in a theatre? It's exactly the same reaction within our soul, although it's the opposite spectrum of reaction.
Yeah. Well, there's also tears of joy. I remember when my first child was born, I was sort of staring, my wife was lying there and I was holding her, and I didn't know what to expect because I was never a father before. And I started crying, but I was laughing, because here's this little being looking up at you going, "All right, you ready? Time to go," and then we had our second one. And, but yeah, it's a very fine line between those two things, which I think is kind of unique and joyful.
The thing I love the most about you guys is the discipline to turn up here 8 times a week and stand in the same spot and still make it look like you want to be there. That must be tough. How do you do it? What is your skill to get on that stage and make me enjoy it as much as you are?
It's interesting you mentioned that. We on Broadway, we get 1 day off a week. We do 8 shows. Our schedule at Phantom is a little different than the other Broadway shows. Normally, you'll do a matinee and an evening on a Wednesday. You'll have Thursday night, Friday night, and 2 on Saturday and 1 on Sunday. We do 2 Thursday, 1 Friday, 2 Saturday. So we actually have less time off. And I equate it to like a professional athlete, except the fact that we don't have a down season. We are continually going. And it is trying. This is uniquely one of the most physically demanding roles I've ever done. And I was shocked to find that out. Vocally demanding, it's physically demanding. I think I do 1,000 stairs and ladders per show. And my whole day is about getting here and making sure I have enough sleep. I eat as good as I possibly can. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I never have. Don't take drugs. And I drink water. So it really is looking at it like this sort of professional athlete. My wife was, as you can, the pictures in my dressing room, she was a major ballerina who ended up on Broadway. And I think, how could I have done that's pro athlete level. But it's tiring, and sometimes I need to sleep in a little bit.
This is the question where you're probably going to walk out and punch me, but where do you go from here? There is no more iconic role for a male actor than the Phantom in The Phantom of the Opera. It is the beautiful role you dream of to take away. For you next, what would you like to do? I mean, the 30th is impending. Are you hoping to still be here for that?
The whole thing about Phantom is that it is an iconic role. When I came in and Norm was doing it, Norm's got a Tony nomination, and we were talking. He goes, you're going to find something. And he said, you've done shows with Stephen Sondheim. So I did Assassins for Stephen Sondheim. I played the Beast in Beauty and the Beast. And you can talk to people about that, right? Oh, I did this, and I worked with Stephen Sondheim and these people, and blah, 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 blah. And I was the Phantom. You were the Phantom in Phantom of the Opera? It's a different thing. No matter where you go in this world, if you say you've played that role, it changes how people look at you. And contractually, I think I'm number 14 on Broadway, or 14 or 15. So there aren't that many people who have done it. So it's almost like a bucket list, but it's like, okay, now what? What I'm excited about, and we'll see if it happens, is you may have seen The Witches of Eastwick that was in London years ago. I did the original reading of that years and years and years ago with a girl named Kristen Bell, who then became this big film star. Well, we did another presentation of it in Maine right before I did this, and it is hilarious. So my goal is to get Cameron to bring that back to Broadway. That's my dream right now.
The pressure when the curtain goes up, do you feel that? Do you think about it? Do you consider the audience, or is it all about being the Phantom and you just let happen what happens?
Both. There are days when I'm tired and I go, okay, I've got to get my vocal chops up. And, I'm tired, like we talked about on Thursday Matinee, and 8 shows a week singing this role is daunting. And if I don't get enough sleep, I go, okay, how am I going to modify? I always give 100%, but there has to be things where I go, okay, my body's not working as well. I can't necessarily do that. So there's both. But at the end of the day, there's an audience there, and my goal is to bring this show to those people, because they're again, maybe people who have never seen it, and I want them to walk away thinking that they've seen something great.
It's that incredible ethic you all have of giving the best show you can on that particular day, and that's what makes it live, and that's why I think we connect so specially with Broadway and the West End.
Yeah, I agree. And, theater is live. I've done a lot of television and film where you can say, okay, cut, stop. There was one night where my head caught on fire. And, I hit the candle, which ignites the flame, which releases Raoul from the noose. And for some reason, it shot back and my head engulfed in flames, right? I was fine. The Raoul smacking me on the head trying to put the flames out. But those are things that, that's live. The audience is watching that. And as crazy as it was for a couple of seconds, it's also exciting. I don't want my head to catch on fire again, but the audience experiences that. And you can't, somebody once said, it's like a theater seat is not like a cookie. A cookie has the shelf life of a few weeks, maybe a month. A theater seat has the shelf life of a day. Because if it's gone today, you're not getting that back tomorrow. Right. So it's bringing that show to them every night, every day, 8 times a week in the best way possible.
Thank you so much for talking to me. James Barbour is the star of Phantom of the Opera, currently on Broadway. It is a fabulous show that is timeless, and those tracks, as they come along, it's one after the next. And I think people forget how many great Lloyd Webber songs there are in this.
Yeah, truly. And doing the show, I find myself, getting in the costume and being in the dressing room, and, even the time between scenes, and my dresser and I are like singing the show. And I've been doing it for over 2.5 years, and I'm still other people's roles. I'm doing Carlotta. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not a soprano, but I'm trying,
As we sit here now, what is it, just before 7? You've got an hour to go. How long does it take you to become him?
It takes an hour. So I sit in the chair at 7 o'clock, usually listen to some music, and let Thelma Pollard, who's the makeup artist, who's been here since day one, do her magic and glue my face together. My hair is normally very long, but I had to cut it for the show because they put a bald cap on. And it takes an hour to do that, and then I try to warm up a little bit, and off we go.
Thank you so much for your time. Great to meet you.
You as well. Thanks so much.